You're listening to School Counseling Simplified, a podcast with easy-to-implement strategies for busy school counselors. Here's your host, Rachel Davis from Bright Futures Counseling.
Hey listeners, let me let you in on a little secret. You don't have to stress about planning your class lessons, small groups, and individual sessions anymore. My school counseling membership program, Impact, is here to help. So, what do Impact members get? Monthly curriculum plans across all 3 tiers, SEL lessons, small groups, individual, and seasonal activities, step-by-step video implementation guides, bi-weekly Zoom coaching calls with me, and an exclusive Facebook group community. This membership is designed for school counselors who want to deliver the best possible content to their students, but who also want to just press the easy button. You'll get access to monthly curriculum plans, resources, support, and community so you can deliver quality, engaging, life-changing counseling lessons to your kiddos. So what do you think? Are you ready to make an impact? Join today at stressfreeschoolcounseling.com/impact.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of School Counseling Simplified. So last week I was talking to you about how you can create a culture of kindness at your school. And remember, each week I'm going to be sharing a different idea to kind of be a predecessor to bullying prevention. So last week was all about kindness. This week I want to talk about conflict resolution. So again, in last week's episode, if you haven't listened to it yet, I encourage you to start there because I talked a lot about restorative practices. And part of that was the resolution circle. So there's different circles in restorative practices, like proactive circles, resolution circles, and the resolution circle, it's conflict resolution, right? So a couple ideas, I'll just briefly recap, but again, I encourage you to go listen to that episode. But you could have something like a talk it out circle. So if 2 kids in the class are having a conflict, they could kind of be like in a fishbowl sitting in the middle of a group, chairs around them with the remaining students, and they're resolving the conflict in front of the other students, and then respectfully, of course, with a talking piece, with the teacher facilitating, perhaps you're facilitating as well, and then the other students can come in and, contribute as well, and then as the leaders, you and the teacher can contribute too. So it's a really cool way to resolve a problem, and then everyone's learning conflict resolution skills by witnessing this, rather than sending the kids out of the classroom and only those kids are being talked to. Everyone's kind of getting a mini lesson on conflict resolution. You could also do it where if there's a relationship that needs to be repaired between a teacher and student, you can hop in the class, allowing the teacher and student to resolve it together, and then they can re-enter the classroom. So remember, we're always trying to resolve, forgive, and repair these relationships. So that's the first conflict resolution step I have for you, is that resolution circle. I do a deeper dive on it in last week's episode. But the second thing you can do with your students is I statements. So I absolutely love I statements. They're super great at the elementary level in providing a script for students to follow. So sometimes kids, they want to resolve a conflict and they might get it conceptually or in theory, but they don't know actually what to do. So I love providing them with a literal script they can rehearse, practice, and follow using an I statement. So I like to use the same format. You just fill in the blanks. So it would say something like, I feel blank when you blank because blank, next time please blank. So something like, I feel angry when you ignore me because I have something important to tell you. Next time please listen to me. So they're naming the emotion, followed by the incident that occurred, followed by why it's important to them or why it made them feel that way, and then followed by a next step or a path to resolution. I think that last piece is super important and often overlooked when teaching I statements. So that one that's like, next time please. So they're kind of giving a suggestion. Now the beauty of an I statement is that it's an I statement, not a you statement. So sometimes when people are angry, and you can explain this to the kids, sometimes when people are angry, they'll say well, you did this and you did this and you ignored me. And that's like, how do you feel when you feel fingers pointing at you, right? And you're just like, whoa, 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 back off. And you're likely going to react defensively. But if you come at them with an I statement and say, I feel this way, you're starting it with I language, not you language. And that makes a really big difference. So I really encourage you guys to explain that to your students, kind of the difference between an I statement and a you statement, how it would make them feel if someone came at them with you statements versus if someone came at them with I statements. That kind of explains the purpose on why we use I statements. Then you can give them the actual script So I love to write it on the board, like a dry erase board, and I'll do fill in the blanks. So you could do this in a class lesson. That would be the ideal way to do this. So you would teach, a conflict resolution lesson. You're providing the script for the kids, and then they're going to fill in the blanks. Then, so you'll take different examples like, okay, Rachel, what was your, what examples do you want to give? And then you can have another student in the class, or you can all come up with them together as a class. Like, okay, let's say the emotion is angry. What's something that made this person angry? What could they do next time? So it's really fun and interactive. Love to do in a class lesson. And then you can also do role play. So role play is super powerful. In a class lesson, you can break them up into different pods. So different groups of like 4 or 5 students, and give them some scenarios where they have to practice I statements. So you'll just give them a scenario card saying this is what happened, and then they have to resolve that conflict using an I statement. So those are super effective. I find the script and the role play are the best ways to teach I statements. And then the kids now have these like concrete examples and ideas of what to do when a real conflict occurs on the playground or whatever. You could also do, because this is the class lesson, like the tier 1 level. So you could also do posters around your school and have like the I statement framework, listed out. So if they're in the hallway and something occurs, or in the lunchroom and something occurs, or at recess, they'll see the poster and they can quickly refer to that language to resolve their conflicts. Or, the person, the recess support staff, or the teacher, or the custodian, or the principal, or you, or whoever's nearby helping with the conflict can quickly refer to the poster. So it kind of gets like a common language, gets everyone on board. So I think that's so important with the I statements. So the restorative practices of using those resolution circles, that's like within the classroom level. So that's something the teacher's doing, that you're kind of training the teacher. Again, check out last week's episode for tips on how to do that. But then the I statements and the role play and the fill in the blank and the posters, those are all at the tier 1. That's the class level, right? So that's you going into the classrooms and teaching this in your class lessons. I'll link to a conflict resolution class lesson in the show notes for you guys to check out as well. And now I want to talk to you about small groups. So sometimes you need to have a conflict resolution small group. Sometimes that's necessary, right? But it's nice to have this intervention before we have a bullying prevention intervention. So you could have like a bullying prevention group, and these would maybe be with students who have been showing bullying behaviors and you're trying to get them to not bully. But hopefully we can kind of nip it in the bud and get this conflict resolution group established, so we don't even have to have the bullying prevention group, if that makes sense. So we don't even want there to be the bullies. Hopefully they'll learn to resolve conflicts in a respectful way using I statements, etc., things they learn in the group, and then we won't even have to take it to that next level. So that's what I mean by saying that the topics this month are all about like preventing bullying prevention. Well, no, that doesn't make any sense. A predecessor to bullying prevention. You know what I mean. So anyways, I have a conflict resolution small group that I do all the time. So I'm going to chat about a few activities inside of that, because these are things that you guys could come up with at your school and do them with your kids. So I'll give you some ideas of activities you could do in a conflict resolution small group, but also you can just check out the small group I have. It's called Pirates to Peacekeepers. I love a good theme for a small group, and it's in the show notes as well. But let me give you a few ideas from that group that you can do with your students. So you could do something like a discussion dice where students are answering different questions, or discussion cards where they're answering different questions like, how can you avoid conflicts? Talk about a time that you had a conflict at school or at home or with your friends. How often do you have conflicts? How do you usually resolve your conflicts? Then you could do things like, students could do like some kind of craft or activity or interactive notebook where they're writing, conflicts they have at home, conflicts they have at school, conflicts with friends, other conflicts they have. Then you could go on and use some discussion cards talking about like the why behind it. Like, why do you think you have conflicts? And how does it make you feel? How do you feel when you resolve a conflict? How do you feel when you're having a conflict with a friend? What advice would you give to someone who's in an argument with their friends? What have you learned about resolving conflicts so far in this group? Do you feel like you need help resolving your conflicts? These are all, different sources of their why, right? Why they think they're having their conflicts. And then we can talk about their choices. So for this one, in a conflict resolution group, I like to use Kelso's Choices. You can refer to that. That's a great program that you can use. There's even like a funny YouTube video I can link to. It's to the tune of Ice Ice Baby, but it's all about it's your choice baby or something. It's all about choices. My kids used to love it. So that's a fun video you can show if you're talking about Kelso's Choices and the different options on what you can do to resolve a conflict, like a wheel of choices. And then you can talk about the sources of their conflict. So maybe they don't know why their conflicts are starting. So maybe things like name calling or pushing or kicking or blaming others or spreading rumors or teasing or put downs. And some of these terms, come up with bullying prevention, like teasing and put down and spreading rumors. These all kind of start like this with conflicts, but then they can evolve if they're repeated over time and they're severe and there's a power struggle, they can turn into bullying. So that's why I love doing this as like a predecessor to the bullying prevention. Hopefully we don't even have to have that bullying prevention group because the kids are learning the skills they need in a conflict resolution group. So I hope those are a few ideas to help you if you're going to come up with a conflict resolution group. So some students, may need a little more than the I statements that you're teaching at the class level. Maybe they need a little more support to really talk about conflicts and their own personal conflicts. And then lastly, you probably won't do individual sessions on conflict resolution because that would just be one student. Usually it's going to be a conflict between more than one student, right? Unless they're having an internal conflict. But when students are sent to you, a lot of times they're sent to you because they're having a conflict. So step one, I was saying you can try to do that resolution circle at the classroom level, and they're not even sent to you because they're resolving it within the classroom. That's the ideal, right? But sometimes they are still going to be sent to you while you're still establishing that, or if you don't have that at your school yet. And so what I find is important, so a lot of times they'll come in and we'll do like a contract, okay? We'll talk about it. We'll try to, talk about what we could have done differently, what we'll do next time, sign some kind of contract. And that works well, but it's kind of a Band-Aid, It is just kind of fixing this one problem, but we don't know that it's going to continue to prevent this problem from happening. And if this problem continues to happen over and over again, repeatedly, then it could potentially turn into some kind of bullying. So that's why we don't just want to Band-Aid it. We really want to find the source of the conflict. So why did you do that? How do you think it makes that person feel? Again, I apologize. There's still construction going on at our house or at our neighbor's house. But yeah, don't just Band-Aid it. You can really find the source of the conflict. Why is this happening? And then if we get to the root cause of it, if you spend a little more time, in that initial session, you're going to save time in the long run because they're not going to keep getting referred back to you. So I know a lot of times these are like those drop-in cases, like you're in between a group and a class lesson, and they're like, oh, we sent so-and-so up because they're having a conflict. Can you talk it out? And you're like, oh, I don't have time for this right now. So you do like a quick contract, send them back to class. But if you take a little more time to find the source of the conflict, it's really going to be worth it because then you're not going to have to see them over and over again. And then hopefully you won't ever have to see them for bullying-related incidences. So guys, I hope you found that helpful. I hope you're feeling inspired to do some conflict resolution work with your own kiddos at the class level, at the small group level, and in those pairs when they get referred to your office. Okay guys, I'll talk to you next week.
Thanks for listening to School Counseling Simplified. You can find the links from today's episode in the show notes. If you'd like to connect with Rachel, she's on Instagram and Teachers Pay Teachers at Bright Futures Counseling. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any episodes of School Counseling Simplified. Talk to you next week.